Welcome to Third Wheel Podcast.
I'm Caleb.
And I'm Darcy. At night.
Yep, sorry. You planned that, I could tell.
I did.
You were ready. Well, guys, I'm excited for today because we discovered a new feature. Well, I say not discovered because I knew we could do it. I was just too lazy to try it. But we are able to play videos on this equipment right now and react to it as we go. This won't include video or anything. And so we got some cool stuff to play today. So, Darcy, do you know who Drake Bell is?
Yeah. I used to watch, what was the name of that Disney, or not Disney, Nickelodeon show?
Drake and Josh. It literally has his name in it. He also made cameos on the Amanda Show and stuff like that. From an early age, he built his career from the ground up. Okay.
Yeah, I used to watch him on Drake and Josh all the time.
Yeah, Drake and Josh, and then he had some iCarly stuff where he did the main song. But anyway, he does tons of music. And recently, I say recently, this is a couple years old now, he got in trouble for child endangerment, with which he has pled guilty to. So we're not defaming anyone here. But I found an interview where he's on a podcast and he is explaining his side of the story. But before we get to that, are you familiar at all with anything that he was accused of before he pled guilty to what he pled guilty to?
I just remember it being something involving like children. I thought.
Yeah. So from his perspective, he released like a weird apology video, which went about as well as every other apology video ever. I'll give him props for not picking up a ukulele and playing, you know what I mean? And, telling everyone to get all aboard, I'm glad he didn't do that. But he did do a video where he addressed a lot of stuff that wasn't true, which is a fair thing to talk about. Okay, because imagine someone like him who has access, and his main demographic is younger kids, girls and guys, since he's a Nick star, Nickelodeon, and he appeals to that demographic. Obviously, a headline saying he ran to Mexico and changed his name, and he's hiding from his like those sell. Those are headlines that sell. So that's one of the things he addressed in his bizarre video. But then he also downplayed a lot of the stuff that he actually did get in trouble for. And that's the part I want to address today. Obviously, disclaimer here on the Third Wheel at Night. Subjects are innocent until proven guilty. However, in this case, he has pled guilty, and we're reacting to stuff that he is giving us. I'm not making stuff up. I'm not adding anything he didn't say to something. I'm just trying to react specifically to what he has said. So from his thing, here's what I pretty much know was he pled guilty to child endangerment, and let me see what the other one was. It was something very specific. Here's what was fishy to me at first. Initially, he pled not guilty. He was 34 at the time. To felony attempted endangering children and misdemeanor disseminating matter harmful to juveniles. He pled not guilty on Thursday, June 3rd, 2021. He also hopped on Twitter, which is our favorite app here on the show. I'm sorry, he hopped on
X.
No, I think at the time it was Twitter still. So at the time he hopped on Twitter, which is now known as X, and was liking tweets that were like, "Oh, Drake, you're just going to beat the charges, haha, it's fine." And then he was, he's like, this will all blow, that was his initial. Yeah. Well, then did you see the video where he was pleading guilty? They did it over Zoom, and they read the charges, and then they said, "How do you plead?" And he took a plea deal essentially. So already right then and there, let's get into that. If you were accused of something like that, if you didn't do it, would you plead guilty? Because we just want to get this out of the way, especially on a charge like that.
Right. It depends what the other consequences are for and how likely I am to get them.
Okay.
So even if I know I didn't do it, if it looks bad or looks as if I did, and I feel like there's a chance I'll have to serve 10 years in prison versus be on parole and just live with a charge.
Yeah.
I might just go the easier route.
And that's kind of the route he takes, was I was going to get screwed anyway. And they explained that they explained the trial to him. And then there's a potential, there's potential for him to lose. And then he has to face real time because these are two felony charges essentially.
See, but I don't know if you understand how hard it is to charge someone with stuff like that. But it's really difficult. It takes
absolutely.
a lot. So you would have to undeniably be guilty pretty much to get those charges. So
Right.
the fact that it's that charge specifically that he's
Yeah.
pleading guilty to is a red flag.
Yeah. So what he ended up pleading guilty to on Zoom, which is the video I talked about, I recommend audience if you haven't seen it. It's easy to find. You could even find an edit where they added the Drake and Josh like laugh track to it. So, you know, he hops on Zoom and everyone starts clapping because like he's on screen. And so you haven't seen that because it's funny and it seems like something you'd watch.
That's fun.
And
that
then-
does sound funny.
And then like when the Zoom ends, everyone's like, oh, you know, there was like, ooh, what's going, you know, and everyone's all shocked. But he did plead guilty. So originally, I believe it was let me double check. I don't want to lie here on here. Not guilty to felony and misdemeanor. No, okay. So it was initially he pled not guilty, but then he pled guilty. He pled guilty to both. So one felony, one misdemeanor. Okay. And the misdemeanor, distributing harmful material to juveniles. I said it verbatim earlier. So now I'm just kind of speeding through that part. Okay. He pled guilty to those. And that's on Zoom. It's on YouTube. You can find a good edit of it. But now we're going to watch this interview it's titled Drake Bell on Why He Pled Guilty. He's on another podcast. I don't see the name of the podcast, but it's under this channel Ultimate Drake Bell. Let me see here. All right. The channel appears to be called Creativo number 324. And then it has Drake Bell's name in it. So it looks like he's on this little podcast. And this is a clip from that. So we're going to play this and we're going to pause it as we go.
It was so construed and taken out of context, and things were left out when it was being when things were being reported. And it created a complete narrative that is absolutely not the case, not true, I had gotten I had found myself in some hot water when I was, being stupid and responded to somebody who had created a Finsta, like a fake Instagram, and were sending me, messages, and I had responded, and it got to a certain point, and then I had realized, oh my gosh, like I think this is, not entirely what it seems or what they've presented it as, and I stopped communicating with them because I found out, okay, I think this person's not who they're. This isn't the case.
All right, I want to pause it right there.
Okay.
Okay, now you started laughing already. Why is that?
Well, like just the way he describes it, where he's like, I found myself in deep waters or hot waters or whatever it was he said. And then he was talking about like the Finsta and everything.
What the hell is it? Have you ever heard of a Finsta before?
It's just somebody with a fake Instagram account.
I had never heard that, so I'm glad he's educating me because I'm very uneducated. I'm not all up to date on the childhood and what the kids are saying nowadays. Like I only figured out what cap means, so you know what cap means, right?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
My mom knew what doxed meant.
Oh, nice. And you were surprised?
Yeah, because I was sharing with her a story, and she was like, "Oh, so she doxed him." I looked at my mom, and I was like,
I'm impressed.
you know what that means? Because like I even remember thinking in my head doxed, and I was like, no, she's not gonna know it. Nobody here is gonna know what that means. I was like, wait, stay up on the times, mom. Like no cap. Like, and that's why it made me think of it, because I just started talking like all of that.
I saw the meme where it's like
I was like, on God.
I saw the meme where like Captain America's sitting in a computer and he's typed, "What does no cap mean?" And he looks at the camera.
That's funny.
So-
But anyways,
Already though, so back to this video.
Yes.
He's already kind of dancing around what he
Right.
did. I'm noticing the shaky, like he doesn't want to say very
I was about to ask if he's always spoken like that.
right. At least in regards to this, he has. I haven't seen him in his natural habitat when he's not talking to children, but but right here, he already doesn't want to really like say. He doesn't want to be straightforward.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? He wants
Yeah.
to kind of dance around what's going on right this second.
Well, it's like I knew someone that was like, and this isn't really too extreme as an example, but I think they were 20 and they were talking to a 15-year-old.
Mm.
So like gross,
Which is still wrong.
right? Still wrong, gross.
Sure.
But like in my mind, it's a little different than someone that's like 52.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I mean, Drake Bell was in his 30s when this
Right.
happened. You know, this wasn't like.
But I always noticed that they would say, yeah, this person that was about to be 16.
Yeah.
So like, they were saying they were 15 without like saying like, yeah, they were 15. Like they were trying to make it sound just like the
Right.
little,
Yeah.
most little bit better that they can't. You know,
Yeah.
I had just turned 20.
Yeah.
They were about to be 16. You know, like trying
Yeah.
to make it sound like there's only like 3 years instead of 5.
Right.
Or,
Right.
you know,
Right. There's
and,
already
yeah,
the like.
that dance around. Like if you have to like explain it that way, like maybe
You did
it's-
something wrong and you know you did something wrong.
Maybe you
right.
know you did something.
So
wrong.
I'm not crazy on that, right?
Right.
Like he's already being, and I get it's an uncomfortable situation. Nobody wants to admit that they're doing that.
Right.
You know, people that robbed a bank, they can say clearly, yeah, I robbed a bank. But something like this, now again, he pled guilty to child endangerment, which isn't quite going all the way with that
Right.
type of case. He pled guilty to a lesser charge. Well, actually, no. I believe those were the original charges. Sorry, this dog's going crazy. So we get to here, and he's already being kind of fishy. He's already
Right.
not speaking straightforward. I almost kind of hint the same thing he was doing on Twitter where he's liking tweets that are laughing at this. I kind of get the same cocky attitude. You can't see his face, audience, but when you hear him talk and you hear him say like, you know, here's what happened, guys. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm already getting the downplaying here. I'm already getting the attitude that I don't take this seriously, or I'm trying to downplay it so that way it takes away from what I actually did. So that's what I'm getting. We're only a minute in. It's only a 10-minute video, not even. So I'm going to go ahead and press play.
And I stopped communicating. That sent that person into a total tailspin. They ended up, going after my wife and going after, telling me, threatening me, and doing all of these things. And so I had ended up getting in a little bit of trouble because of these text messages.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Does he stutter like that all the time?
I don't think so.
Because like, there's no way he does. Because he used to be an actor.
Yeah.
On a kids' TV show,
Yeah.
and you never like see him talking that way.
Because he's always playing the confident guy who gets all the girls.
Yeah, and
But-
then you hear him go. Oop.
Yeah. But here's the other thing. So he's admitting that he's talking to people in a certain way where
Yeah.
someone could get in trouble, because
Yeah.
that's how he's putting it. But he's admitting it as he's talking about talking to other people while he's married. But
Right.
but you see how he framed it? He said, well, as soon as I quit talking to them, they went after my wife immediately. So he's already putting everything on this person, which again, if that's what happened, that's bad. But the way he framed it to draw away from, well, I was talking to someone else other than my wife, which is
Right.
obviously to him is not a good thing, but he downplayed it. He said it without addressing it.
Right.
He threw it in there with like, but then immediately they went after my wife. Like, oh my gosh, like, dude, like I quit talking to them. And then, bro, they just started hitting me where it hurt. So I'm already seeing the fishy, like, again, fishy. He's just not being honest. Or if he is, he's downplaying the severity of it by putting the blame on other people. What do you think?
My other thing that I find weird when he was talking about the Finsta account, because he's famous.
Yeah.
He gets
He's going to get DMs like out the wazoo.
yeah.
Right.
And so it's like, I feel weird that, he fell for some fake Instagram account, like some kid out there just like was able to successfully bait and trick him to message each other on Instagram.
Even then, let's take how the kid acted. They're a kid,
Right.
Like if he wasn't talking to this person to begin with in a bad way, like this wouldn't have happened. So he's immediately trying to gaslight essentially a child,
Right.
and it like again, it's not cool, that type of behavior. But the fact that he was even in that, like he's in this position that he put himself in, but he's still trying to make the victim who was underage at the time like seem crazy to put all the blame on them.
Right.
He's taking blame off of himself. And that really just rubs me the wrong way. I don't know if it rubs you the wrong way as well, but I'm just really seeing a lot of deflecting behavior.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and keep going.
But that's all it was. It was just just some text messages. And well, when you go and you look me up and you see the reports, I mean, it's like I was sending nudes and I was getting inappropriate pictures, and I was physical with this person at a concert, or that person at a concert, or I did this and that, and none of that was the case, and it was all investigated in my case, through witnesses and for digital forensics. They'd taken my phones and subpoenaed my Instagrams and social media and all that, and everything that was said came up false. Came up. There was no proof of any of that in there.
The way he's like saying it came up false, and he's
false.
yeah, like it sounds like he's lying.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Just some text messages does not bring felony charges.
Right.
I'm sorry. Like, we have a very strong criminal justice system. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Do some people fall for the cracks? Absolutely. But here in the United States, I don't care what state you're in, if you're in freaking, Maryland or Maine or whatever.
Maryland?
Shut up.
Maryland?
Yeah. Maryland, yes. Shut up. If you're in Maryland or Maine, whatever, I don't care. It's just some text messages are not going to bring felony charges. Like, these were high. That's really high. It's not first degree felony, but I'm willing to bet at least third degree felony. Like, the same amount of force as if you robbed a bank, without a weapon.
Jeez, that's heavy.
Yeah. Right? Am I crazy? And you were telling me how hard it is to bring charges against people.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah.
They don't just slap charge. Now, sometimes, some people get screwed over. Somebody makes stuff up. I've had stuff made up on me. I'm sure you have too. Have you had stuff made up on you before?
I mean, not in like a legal sense, not where somebody was trying to charge me with anything.
Right.
Or like
but you've
go
had people
against
lie
me in
about
court,
you.
But yeah.
Yeah, I've had people lie about me too. It happens all the time to people. Even really nice guys like me, people are going to make some stuff up about you. Okay, I know you're laughing because you don't believe me. But it's true. So is it too much of a stretch to believe that this Finsta, I'm putting air quotes here, Finstagram account, he quit responding and then they might have started targeting him? No, that's not unheard of. Okay. We've had the Johnny Depp thing and Amber Heard. Like, yeah, people bring fake stuff up and people will start jumping the gun. And
I stepped on a bee. Sorry, I just always like see her face whenever she says that. Oh my gosh. I'm not going to make commentary on Amber Heard because I'll get canceled.
Yeah, no kidding. So he wants to address here before he even gets to the charges. People started making up some headlines. I get that. That would annoy me too. Okay. If he does address that more later, we can get into it. But if it was just simple text messages, they wouldn't have brought felony charges to him. It would have been now they're in some states, depending what state this was in, there's trying to entice a child or minor online, which isn't a felony, I don't believe.
Would you get in trouble for that though if the Instagram is like it
Fake?
looks like you're talking to an older woman?
Right. I don't know because I believe him when he says nothing happened. I believe him when he says they weren't physical. But he's still trying to downplay how he talked to this person. He keeps saying like, well, it's just some text messages. I was like, well, then if they were just some text messages, why the heck are you getting felony charges?
Right.
He's saying that the government subpoenaed his phone. All right. And then they subpoenaed his social media profiles. Okay. What did they find? Because they had to have found something because both charges stuck to where they brought him to court and he was charged with it and he was able to plead not guilty initially. Then he pleads guilty. And that's why I asked you earlier, if this stuff was just made up, like he's trying to pretend it is, would you have even pled guilty? I wouldn't have.
Right.
Let's take these to court. If they're just messages that say, hi, how are you doing? Oh, shoot, you're underage. Okay, I'm out of here. I'm not going to get charged.
Right.
You know what I mean? So whenever they subpoenaed his phone and all his stuff, whatever they're looking at, I mean, that there was enough there to charge him with high level charges, not a ticket. You know what I mean?
He was just stuttering so
Yes.
bad during that. Like he sounded like he was lying.
Yes.
Because he's sitting there, he's like, they subpoenaed us everything, and they came back and they found it was false.
Yeah.
And I was like, was it?
I say you're not a good actor, Drake.
Yeah.
Which is weird
I was
because you're an actor.
Yeah. I was like, was it false?
Yeah.
You know, and then especially if you have those subpoenas and it comes back as nothing, how like you were saying, how would you get charges?
Yeah.
If it comes back and it was what he is saying it was.
Yeah. It is hard to get even to the level of bringing charges against somebody.
Yeah.
It is hard. You got to make sure you're screenshotting everything. You got to make sure that you're holding on to it and it's time stamped. You don't get to just bring an accusation to a court and then, okay, cool. Well, we're going to arrest him right now. They don't do that. They need to have the investigations. They subpoena your phone. They subpoena all this crap. Mm-hmm. And then they get the full thing. They get the full, range and spectrum of whatever you sent before they bring charges.
Yeah. They took my phone for I think 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Whenever I reported that one guy.
Yeah.
And they were trying to catch him. And even my detective was like, I can tell he did this.
Yeah.
I know he did.
Yeah.
I can tell he's currently doing this to other people. But we need to catch him very blatantly because we need a lot more than he's a creepy dude.
Right. Thank you.
You can't charge someone for just being
Creepy.
weird or creepy or making you uncomfortable.
Right.
You have to have actual facts and hard set proof to bring to a table.
Yes.
To get charges or get people arrested or what have you.
They had enough here for felony child endangerment. Felony.
They had so much stuff on this guy that I reported. I had a voice recording of him admitting to certain things.
Yep.
And really insanely creepy text messages and Snapchat records. And I had so much. I don't even know why I had a voice recording. I just remember hearing it and being like, wait, when did I take this? Did I accidentally,
Mm-hmm.
And it was everything was lining up to be against him and they still didn't have enough.
That's right.
So I just don't believe
It was just some text messages.
that
and
you just yeah.
False.
Yeah. Right.
This is supposed to be a chill interview where it's he's defending himself and whatever. This to me is worse than anything he could have said to police. Right here. Because it's already done and settled with. They're not going to reopen this. We have a double jeopardy law here in the United States where they can't charge you twice with the same crime. You know what I mean? So they're not going to open this back up and do all this. It's done.
Which there would have
So, sorry. I'm going to go ahead and press play again.
been. I mean, if there's it's digital forensics. If it's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not. You can't even delete. I mean, even if you try to delete it, I mean, they're gonna find what they need to find. And then luckily for any of the physical stuff that happened in Encounter, I had, so many witnesses that came out that, not even on my side, but on the accuser's side, where they were like, "What are you talking? We were there. We were there the whole time. This didn't occur. This didn't occur. They were never here alone. This didn't occur." And so none of that, moved forward as far as charges or anything. All that could move forward was that, I was stupid and responded to some text messages, and that's what I essentially ended up getting charged with.
Yeah.
But if you go and you read anything, I mean, it wasn't even an assault case. My case wasn't even there was no sexual assault, no assault, no physical anything in any of the charges and any of the what I had to go through. But if you go and look me up, it's like Drake Bell charged with sexual assault. Drake Bell has to.
Okay, I want to talk about what he said there. What he's basically bragging about is there's not enough evidence to prove it went beyond text messages. And I believe that. I'm willing to believe that maybe he didn't follow through with it. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that. I just wanted to assume everything he says is lying. But at the same time, the cocky way he goes about it, it makes it just sound like he's saying, well, there just wasn't enough proof. He's bragging about the lack of proof. He's not bragging about, I beat the charges because they were false.
Right.
He's bragging about, well, they just didn't have proof of it. I had witnesses there that defended me, and they said, well, we didn't see that. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I understand the false narratives running around and people going around and making stuff up as they go and making false news, false headlines. I get it. I understand why that's frustrating. I understand why that could be a big deal and take a toll on your psyche. But that's not what I feel like he's talking about necessarily. He wants to he's leaning heavily into the stuff that was wrong, and you can tell when he's talking about false headlines, he's not stuttering, he's not, but he's not doing that anymore
Right,
because
right.
that part's probably true. People took the narrative and made stuff up. But when you start pressing him about questions that he's not comfortable answering or he's potentially not telling the full truth on, that's when he's starting to stutter. That's when he's starting to,
Take long pauses and gulps.
start throwing out words that might confuse us. Well, that's forensic investigate. You know what I mean? Like he starts making up terms. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like, do you notice that when he's talking about the stuff that he can actually have an answer for? Like, yeah, they were making stuff up. He's not stuttering. Body language changes, all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Confidence
do
goes
see
up.
that.
You know what I mean? Now, am I this crazy good investigator? No, but I'm just watching. I have a good BS detector, I'd say. And I noticed that when you press on what he actually did, he starts wanting to skirt around things. He's looking for big words to throw out. And then when you get to the stuff that he actually didn't do, he's like confident, you know, he knows what to say. And, you know, and I'm more inclined to believe that part. So, do you have anything or can I press play?
Good to go.
All right.
Register as a sex offender. I'm like, it wasn't even a sex case.
Yeah. And
It wasn't even an assault case. It was.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with that.
And it's frustrating that you can't do anything about fake news. Like there's no way you can retaliate.
No, what am I going to do? Go sue in some publication, and then a few days later they write an article, bashing me, and then at the very end they're like, oh, by the way, we fixed a couple of the things. I mean, nobody reads that. They just read the first headline, then they're done. Yeah. After I was sentenced for what I went through, there were headlines saying that, Drake Bell is going to have to register as a sex offender in California. I mean, this is not. It wasn't even a sex case. I hate talking like this, but that wasn't what happened.
Yeah.
And that wasn't why I was there, and that's not why I, and the reason I pled guilty to even the charges that I was charged with was because my attorney looked at me and said, "Look, I had already spent, so much money on representation and investigation and all this stuff just to defend myself." And they said, well, now look, this is what a trial is going to look like. You're going to go, it's going to be 2 or 3 weeks. My wife and I had just had a son. So they're like, your son's going to be sitting behind you watching this happen, and the media is going to twist it any way they want that's going to make it the most clickable as possible. And it's going to be every day. People are going to be watching what's happening every day. And anybody is going to be able to say anything they want on the stand, whether it's true or not. And
So how are you feeling right now about why he took the plea deal?
I feel like he had a really crappy attorney.
Absolutely.
If what he's saying is true.
Yeah.
and there's no proof. They found nothing at all.
Yeah.
That's one of the worst attorneys I have ever heard then.
Let's just get this out of the way.
Yeah, let's just get this out of the way. Your son's going to be there, so let's just say you did it. And
You'll
he's
be-
like,
yeah.
yeah.
You'll be home in time for Christmas.
Right.
Like, no. Like, that's why I was asking you, like, would you accept that? Like, no.
Right.
Unless I knew I was going to lose.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? All right. Now, people take plea deals for murder to avoid the death penalty, even if they didn't do it. But those are like wrong place, wrong time.
Right.
Or maybe some people, maybe even recently, I can't speak to recently, but I can speak to in the past. If you were a certain skin color, you were the person they charged with the crimes. You weren't there. It had nothing to do with you. It was just same, different color skin. That in that instance, I'd be more inclined to be like, dude, take a plea deal. That's your best bet.
Right.
But the way he's like, oh, it was just some text messages, but I pled guilty anyway.
Yeah.
My attorney said plead guilty. No, here's what probably happened was his attorney sat down and said, hey, this looks really bad. We'll go to court if you want. But if we go to court and you lose, and there's a lot of evidence, like your attorneys are supposed to be really honest with you and say, hey, this is not going to really go well for you. We can chance it with the jury. We can chance it with the judge. But if you accept these guilty pleas here, we can get you a lighter sentence. We can get you this and that. And then when you put it that way, then you might be inclined to weigh your options more. Like, okay, well, I'm screwed because they found some really bad stuff on here. I need to accept guilty. I really don't see a world where he accepts anything but guilty unless there was something there worth talking about.
Right.
But again, when you press him on this, he's like, and a lot of deferring of blame, a lot of not taking accountability. And then when it's time to talk about why he pled guilty, again, it's the same stuff. It's the same downplaying. It's well, that's not really how it happened.
Right. And it's just like, it just doesn't line up because, like, what, like, sane person would sit there and hear their attorney saying, oh, just take the plea deal even though you didn't do it, and just be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Especially for something endangering children.
Endangering children. Like, yeah, I got my phone subpoenaed and they found absolutely nothing with their science technology, forensic analysis
NASA.
data, Houston Jets, like,
yes.
And so, like, I don't, he's definitely holding something back.
Absolutely. And again, guess what? We never see the text. That's the thing.
Right.
I mean, pull up the stuff that they entered as evidence. Like, here, read this. Like, hi, I'm Drake. Oh, you're underage? Well, I'm out of here. Like, there's nothing. He's not showing anything of those messages that would potentially exonerate him.
He knows they're nasty.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, we see guilty people walk away and innocent people go to jail every day.
Yeah.
And I just looked at them and I was like, what? Well, what's the other option? Said the other option is you take responsibility for this this here and what you did here. You take responsibility for that, and we charge you. You'll get, probation, community service, and you won't miss a day in California with your son. And I said, I'll take.
How are they knowing how this, like, sentencing is gonna, like, pan out? Are they just assuming that's what's gonna happen? You might know better than me, but they can't guarantee you if you plead guilty that you'll get probation and all of this, because ultimately it's up to the judge and the jury, correct?
If they offer you a plea, now again, I'm speaking a little bit out of my thing. When you're taking a plea deal, it usually comes with, like, the sentence already. Unless I'm crazy. Let me look that up. Maybe I'm crazy. Do plea deals include sentencing? Okay. If the judge accepts the plea agreement, they will sentence the defendant according to the terms of the deal. Okay, so he pled guilty to felony and misdemeanor, felony endangerment of child, and misdemeanor, what is it? Distributing harmful material to children, something like that. Okay, so not necessarily. They can still have a sentencing hearing, but if he's more agreeable, they're more inclined to work with him a bit. He's still going to get punished, but it's going to be lesser. He made it easy by pleading guilty. Whereas if he pled not guilty and they had a whole trial where they paid for court services and they paid for jury, and if they go through the whole bells and whistles, they're going to give him a harsher sentence based on the guidelines. Okay, that makes sense?
Yeah.
So he hasn't had the sentencing hearing yet. And that does actually, he does mention that a little bit later, which we do get to. But do you have any other thoughts on that?
Not yet.
Okay, he does mention the sentencing hearing here pretty soon. So
the one where I don't miss a day in California with my son. And so that's why I pleaded guilty. But now it goes over. Drake Bell pleads guilty. It's like, no, I was presented with two options. You would have done the same thing, And then it says pled guilty to sexual assault.
okay, so
Because if he would have pleaded not, he didn't have two options.
No.
He had two options if he was guilty.
right.
Like,
If I'm not guilty, my option is we get this done in court. I don't care. We'll go to court.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And then if not guilty, I'd rather hear not guilty than, I don't care. If I'm not guilty, I'm not guilty. I'm fighting the charges. I'm sorry. Especially with the case, I don't want this on me.
Yeah.
I'd rather have a robbery charge than anything involving children charges on me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah. His whole I only had two options. Like you said, if he's guilty, he only has two options. Take a plea deal or go to trial.
Right.
What was on his phone that was so bad they brought these level of charges where he had no choice?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, anyway.
And it's like, none of that's true. None of that is remotely true. And unfortunately, it's put a huge stain on everything that I've worked for and everything that I've been doing. And another bummer is I know I'm vague about it, but because I just haven't really found the time or the place or been comfortable enough to discuss really what I've gone through in Hollywood and my story.
Drake, I'm all ears. Let's hear it. If there's this big story waiting that's going to exonerate you, then why aren't you taking the time now, since you're so comfortable downplaying the victims and downplaying everyone else that was saving you? You know, you're so confident. I say confident because you stutter a lot when you avoid the topics you don't want to talk about. But now's the time. You're on a platform. You're here in this position, and you're not taking accountability, and you're downplaying everything coming at you. So why aren't you taking this time instead of stuttering and and saying everything else besides taking accountability? Why aren't you using this time to tell your side of the story?
Yeah.
I'm waiting.
Right.
I'm all ears. I'm ready to hear, because I don't want to think lower of you than I do now. But every time you open your mouth and you say something that isn't taking accountability for your actions, which you're trying to pretend you're taking accountability for, it annoys me, and I think less of you. Every time you breathe and you're shifting blame to everyone else, your lawyers, your family, you're saying, well, I had to do this for my family. Every time you don't take accountability for what you did, I'm a little bit, I respect you a lot less. So.
Yeah, and he's being vague too about what he even pleaded guilty to. Because did you notice when he was talking about what he was pleading guilty for? The lawyer said, "Yeah, you're going to plead guilty for this here and this thing and that one and all of that." And he's not even saying what he pled guilty to.
That is correct, because it's he wants to take the attention away, take the spotlight to everything else except what he did.
Yeah.
Easy, plain and simple. It's almost done.
But being labeled these things that I've been called in these past, couple years, it's really hard. It's really difficult when there are, actual, perpetrators out there that are, doing really bad things and
spit it out, buddy.
And things that have happened to me, and now I'm being, labeled I'm
what?
I'm being called all these different things.
What are you being called? Drake?
Anybody can just make a
what?
TikTok or Instagram post and say, "Oh, he's this and that," and people believe it immediately. Yeah. It's so amazing how, depending on how many likes it has, raises the believability of whatever that person's saying when it's completely false. Like for example, I made a joke on my social media, and changed my name to Campana. I was just on my social media, I was like, "Yeah, hey, Drake Campana." And then all of a sudden,
Hilarious.
There were news reports because somebody made a TikTok
That's incredible.
that Drake Bell changed his name, moved to Mexico, became a citizen, is running away from everything that he's going through in the United States. And big newspapers think it's that easy to just become a citizen of Mexico and move here. And what it took me 3 weeks by the time they broke the story.
Did he just say it took him 3 weeks to get citizenship in Mexico?
No, because he's talking about the time frame from him making that hilarious joke on his Insta or whatever, Twitter, and then people are saying, "Oh my gosh, he moved to Mexico and became a citizen." He's saying that time span was 3 weeks, and he's like, "It's not that if that was true, it wouldn't take 3 weeks. It would be long, And he's right.
Okay,
and
I thought he was saying that it took him a really long time to get citizenship in Mexico, and it was 3 weeks. Yeah, I was like, what?
Yeah.
That's not a long time at all.
I guess I'm packing up and heading on down to Mexico.
Yeah, I was like, doesn't it take 10 years to get citizenship in America?
Yeah.
Something.
And on that part, I can level with him, where he's like, well, they jumped all the way to assault, of a child. They already, I get that. And that's annoying. That's what happened to Johnny Depp, and that's why he was suing all these stations and why he brought the suit against Amber Heard, because he was losing jobs because every news article was already jumping the gun and taking Amber Heard's side of the story as fact before no charges have been brought. I get that. And I'm also confused as to why he's not bringing lawsuits against those types of news stations.
Right.
Because if those accusations have been made at me by a big news station, you bet I'll see them in court. Right. I'm at least gonna ask an attorney, hey, Like, is this a winnable case? You know, and they'll be honest with you. It's a long shot, or oh, absolutely. But why is he taking the route of like, you know, oh, just, you know, no, just don't worry about it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So now this last part here we can comment on. So
and everybody and they take that, and then they take what all of these other clickbait things about me, and they mush them together, and they're like, oh, that's why he moved to Mexico and changed his name. It's to get away from this and this and this. I'm like, I never moved to Mexico. I mean, I'd love to.
Yeah.
I've never changed my name. This isn't what I got in trouble for. This is not what. I mean, you know, even during my sentencing, when, you know, this accuser said everything that she said, even the judge said, okay, I don't know what all that was, but that's not why we're here.
This is like new material.
Yeah, this is new. This is a litany of allegations that we haven't heard, and I have to bring everybody back to why we're here today, and it's over these few messages.
okay. That's the end of the interview, or at least that snippet of it. I encourage you to go find the rest of it. The original video, again, is titled Creativo, Creativo, number 324, to go watch the full podcast episode with him. So, that last part I really want to draw some attention to, because he's, again, mischaracterizes, in my opinion, he's mischaracterizing how that conversation actually went. According to him, which you just heard, he makes it sound like at his hearing, the person the victim comes in with the accusations and the testimony and the evidence, and the judge is like, hold on. He makes it sound like the judge is like, no, there's not enough proof of that. That's not why we're here. We're here for, you know, it was only messages. That's all that's going on. So, you know, that's the way Drake talks about it. What I really feel like that conversation, because we're noticing a history of downplaying and shifting blame. I think if he was at the sentencing hearing and then they tried to testify to stuff, the judge had to come in and say, hey, we're only focused on, this hearing is only focused on sentencing for these messages. Because if I'm at the end of a case where the hearings, we're just signing documents at the hearing, I can't come in with all this new evidence and testimony, because that's not what the hearing's about. So at sentencing, that's not when you're presenting more evidence. That's not when you're opening up new crimes. So the judge's job is to come in there and say, hey, actually, that's not what, we're just talking about sentencing for these messages. The way Drake wants you to think is going on is the judge is not listening to anybody because these are baseless claims. That's not what the judge is saying. The judge is saying that's not what this particular hearing is for. This particular hearing is sentencing for the messages, the part he already pled guilty to. That's why we're here. He's not saying there's no evidence for what you're talking about. He's saying that's not what today's about. But that's not what Drake wants you to think. He wants you to think that, you know, everything's baseless. The judge stepped in and these are baseless claims. We're not here
Once
to...
again,
you know,
not that he didn't do it, but that there was no proof of him doing it.
And that's not what that hearing was about. The judge can't hear that new evidence on something that's already been pled guilty to, and they're there for sentencing. So... yeah. Wow. I think at some point, I don't think Drake will ever be as big as he used to be. And again, we're talking about Drake Bell, not Drake the rapper. let me get to that.
Imagine if someone took it out of context
Yeah.
and like this one like blew up, and for whatever reason, people just assumed it was like Drake, the rapper.
No, Drake like tweets me, which I don't even have Twitter
He
for
sues
this.
you for like defamation of character.
So, yeah, Drake Bell, I think that you are lying. I don't know, Darcy. Dude, I'm gonna go and be bold. That, in my opinion, which is, you know, weighs nothing. You know what I mean? I'm just looking at this of a guy who isn't telling the truth, at least in my opinion. I think Drake Bell is a liar. What do you think?
He has something going on that he's holding back.
Yeah. If nothing else, he's not telling the full truth.
Right. Because he didn't say that he signed a will not speak about thing.
He's going on shows, and
Right.
he's basically using this as another tour.
Right.
He's
You
taking
know?
a tour.
And so it's like, if you're going to talk about it, talk about it.
Yeah.
If you're not going to talk about it, then don't show up to those. Don't go to those. Don't try to like paint it as something it's not. Don't try to make yourself seem better. Take accountability for the things you did do and the things you didn't do. Like, let those, I don't know, fizzle out, I guess.
If I were him, I'd try to disappear. I would actually go to Mexico and try to get a citizen. You know what I mean? Like he jokes about.
Right.
But I think he's doing this with the intention of coming back and the intention of trying to get back into acting and into singing. And let me be frank with you, it's probably going to work.
You think?
Absolutely. Did you see that weird Kevin Spacey interview? Do you know what Kevin Spacey is? Mm-hmm. Okay. So House of Cards 7, the actor was in trouble for same thing. Allegedly, he had inappropriate relations with an underage person who came out publicly a couple years ago during Me Too. And again, he went through due process, Kevin Spacey, on charges, and they were found not guilty. And on the one involving an underage actor, Kevin Spacey did the same thing where he downplayed it. And he said, I was drunk. I don't remember that night. But by the way, I'm gay. That was his coming out moment. He just went ahead and said, I'm sorry if anything I did harmed somebody, but also I'm gay. And downplayed everything. Didn't say he didn't say he did. He just said, I don't remember. And he used that and he tried to spin it into his big coming out moment. So he's on the Tucker Carlson. Tucker? Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's on his little show that he's doing online, and he's playing the character that he was in House of Cards, Frank Underwood, and he's sitting there like, he's just playing the character and he's talking and he's like, yeah, all those accusations are false. I can't wait to get back into the blah, 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 blah. And it swept under the rug. Ezra Miller. You're familiar with Ezra Miller? The Flash?
I don't think so. Oh, The Flash. Okay.
Guy that plays the Flash.
Sure.
Okay. Same thing. He had a compound. He's got all these charges pending where he had a mom and her daughter there, and allegedly, there's drugs involved. He's giving drugs to this family, and there's also accusations and stuff of more child endangerment, and more child crimes. They didn't kick him out of the Flash. They were saying like, Ezra Miller's committed to getting better and we support him and all this, like, they're just sweeping it under the rug trying to like, now luckily the Flash bombed and they discontinued working with Ezra Miller. But if the movie made money, they would keep pumping more out with Ezra Miller in it. And it annoys me that kid crimes are just being swept under the rug in Hollywood.
Right.
So I'm seeing examples. You got Kevin Spacey coming back. You got Ezra Miller that, studios are trying to wait and see. Like, we don't want to fire Ezra Miller, but we will if the movie, we won't if the movie makes money. But when a woman who comes out and testifies and #MeToo, like, again, take those seriously. That sucks that they went through that. But why is that given more weight than when a kid is getting taken advantage of stuff happening to them? Why are the kids stuff getting swept under the rug and the of age women are taken way more seriously? Kids can't defend themselves the way women can.
Hollywood's all about being inappropriate with kids. I don't know if you know who, what's her name? Jeanette McCurdy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Another Nickelodeon star.
Yeah. And like some of the stuff she went through with Nickelodeon and everything. And like Hollywood just, I don't know. They don't care for kids.
They don't.
They don't protect them.
Nope.
They don't care when you speak up about it. And so you see that all throughout a bunch of those Nickelodeon stars, Disney stars, what have you, about all of the abuse and assault and some of the weird stuff where they were like, at one point on iCarly, Sam and Freddie were supposed to like share a kiss.
Right.
And she said that she had to like redo that scene like 10 or 12 times. Cause she was like, they kept like, saying like, oh, the camera is like, it didn't have the right angle or and she remembers sitting there being like, why am I having to kiss this guy so many times?
Right.
And they're minors and they're little
and
it's awkward and weird. And like, they're just like making them kiss over and over and over again. Or they have an episode about them like playing with each other's feet. And like as a kid, you don't think anything of it because you're like, oh, they're just being goofy and wiggling their toes in the camera. That's funny. But as an adult, you're like, wait a minute. Like, why were they playing with each other's feet?
Yeah. And the iCarly reboot, she didn't want to come back.
Yeah.
And can I blame her?
Right.
No.
Right.
You know, and she wrote that book. I'm glad my mom died.
Yeah.
You know, like I harsh maybe, but she went through some bad stuff.
Yeah.
Her mom and the people that she worked for weren't good people.
Right.
You know? But again, how many people you know have read the book? Probably not that many. Very downplayed. She had to do all the self-promotion herself, essentially. Yeah. She had to go on podcasts and talk about it, promote the book herself, because Hollywood keeps doing it and they don't care what you think.
Yeah.
And we as consumers, we as people tend to forget. We got lucky the Flash didn't make any money. But what if it did? What if it made $1 billion at the box office and Ezra Miller is still allowed to go do what they want and go crazy on people? You know what I mean?
I mean, you see it with presidents too.
Absolutely.
Look at all the accusations. I will say,
allegedly.
I said accusations.
Yeah. Yep. I know. I'm just joking.
I will say, like, as people are coming into power, it is like odd that, you know, some lady all of a sudden decides it's time for her to speak up about what happened 27 years ago.
I agree.
And it's like, okay, why did you wait till now?
Right.
And what difference is it going to make now? When
Zero.
It's been decades, you know?
Yeah.
And so, like, I do get that a lot of those accusations are probably false or exaggerated or, you know, like what have you, you know? But I mean, I'm sure there's one or two in there or sometimes more that are truthful, but because everybody wants to play this game of like accusations of people in power, then it just gets pushed to the side in general because they don't take any of them seriously now, because it's normal to have a guy running for president that has 47 accusations and, you know, 13 assault allegations and, you know, 50 women saying me too, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like the 7 people maybe that are serious don't get taken seriously.
Hands down. Let me look this up. I have something I'm going to say, and it's alleged. Kevin Spacey, back to him. Did you know that a couple of the alleged victims passed away before his trial? So he's found not guilty on the ones that survived, but a handful of them, at least the article I read said at least 3 died.
That's weird.
Mysteriously, back to back. I ran back to back.
I mean, you saw that with the Epstein cases where people were just dropping like flies that knew about the
Even
island.
Epstein himself.
Yeah.
We may never know. But do you think the ones that miraculously survived are the ones that probably were found not guilty of? He was found not guilty of and had the least evidence, and perhaps the ones that had strong evidence and maybe had recordings. Is it too hard of a stretch to believe that the ones that could have got him pinned didn't make it?
I mean, that's a possibility, but I feel like that's a pretty stretchy conspiracy
It is true.
Kevin Spacey's just like an actor.
Yeah.
You know, like he's
But
not
money
a
does-
president or...
Money does things, though.
It does.
Yeah.
It does, but he's not like, you know...
He's not high up there in power, is what you're saying.
Right.
His character was, but not him.
Right. And so, like, I don't imagine that they would go to that length to protect someone like him. Because, like...
Right. But I believe he could, though, if he wanted to.
Like, pay people?
Yeah. And people that actually know. Because you got dummies that hire fake hitmen and get arrested by police. But him in Hollywood, especially since Hollywood has a thing about covering this stuff up and downplaying it, it doesn't... I don't think it's too hard of a stretch to believe maybe someone higher up in Hollywood knew a guy that could help with that type of stuff. I don't think that's too much of a stretch. And as long as you got the money for it, no questions asked.
Right.
But I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas. I'm not saying yay or nay. I'm just saying it's a little weird.
I think that's a pretty far stretch.
I agree.
But I also wouldn't be that surprised.
Right.
If that makes sense.
I'm not saying it did or didn't because I don't know. I'm just saying it's weird.
All of the like trafficking and different stuff that goes on in Hollywood and overseas and just in America at the board, like wherever, is absolutely insane. So, you know, it's not too far out there. I think that people would, you know, off some people that have solid testimonies.
Yeah. No. There's just a thought I put out there. Doesn't take away from the fact that, again, I think Drake Bell could make a comeback because it's not taken seriously. This is a real charge that he pled guilty to because there's something there.
Yeah.
And like you brought up earlier, I wouldn't be hopping on these shows and talking about it without the intent of like, I am trying to make a comeback. I'm trying to explain my side of the story. And his side of the story is downplaying everything that happened.
Right.
And I think it's with the intention of trying to make a career comeback. And honestly, I think there's a chance it could work. You see it all the time with all the YouTuber apologies. You got Shane Dawson, right? You know who Shane Dawson is? You got Colleen Ballinger. Ballinger? Is that the name?
Something like that.
The one that did the ukulele. Yeah. This stuff ain't going to touch her.
Right.
Shane Dawson, same thing. It's not going to touch him.
What do you think about, do we have time to make a quick commentary on the Gypsy Rose stuff?
Oh, no.
Okay.
That's another half-hour conversation.
Gotcha.
We finished the video at 30 minutes. I was thinking maybe, but I had some good questions.
Right.
So, anyway, I think that's all. Do you have any other thoughts on that? Do you think still no, he won't make a comeback?
It's just, he's too old now. Like, his time is past.
He's way past relevant.
Right. You know, he's like, and isn't he in like his 40s now? And like,
34.
you know, no, he's not that young, is he?
Let me look. Drake Bell. Well, he was 34 at the time. Now he's 37.
Really?
But he's
I
34
thought he was
at the
older
time.
than that.
No, 34 at the time of the charges. So, not surprised, like I said.
I feel like his...
He's not old.
I feel
He's
like...
50.
Yeah, right. I feel like his time to shine had already passed even before the charges.
That's fair. He
'cause
was already on the downcline.
Right. Even before the charges, I didn't really hear much about him on anything that was going on or anything new or special. It was just kind of something that came up out of nowhere where it was like this person you hadn't really heard about since you were a child is now getting charges for being with children, you know?
Yeah.
And so even if he feels like he can clear his name and everything's all good and, you know, everyone forgets,
Yeah.
he wasn't relevant at the time that these charges happened anyways.
That's a good
It
point.
wasn't like Johnny Depp, where Johnny Depp is still in like the height of his career.
And he was losing roles because of that.
And losing tons of roles and, you know, everything was like going on, you know, like that. Once he got cleared, he got more famous because like he was already relevant while that was happening.
That is fair. He was still going to play Jack Sparrow.
Right.
You know? And then he lost that,
Yeah.
you know, because somebody made up some stuff about him.
Right.
But yeah. So, all right. I guess that about closes it out, unless you have something else you want to say. That was a good point. He hasn't been relevant way before this anyway.
Right.
So, all right, guys. Thanks for joining us this week. We'll see y'all next time on the Third Wheel Podcast at night.
See you guys.
Bye.